Okay, good morning, anyone. Hope you all had a good rest, and the Cyber Commander's speech kind of woke you all up. And let's dive into, I think, something that will be a very practical panel discussion. Is the European Union ready to use AI operation? I'm actually here with my son, oldest. He's about 20s, and he asked me this morning, where are you heading, what are you discussing? And I said the topic. His response was, oh, is that going to be very short? I'm not going to say what did he imply by that answer to that question, is EU ready to deploy AI in operations? I could ask audience, could you raise the hands who thinks that EU is ready to deploy AI in operations? Some. We have a work to do. We do. Okay, I'll introduce my great panel, and I will be then starting with hands-on practical questions. So we have Mr. Jean-Yves Courtois. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing very well, CEO of Safran AI, a company who already provides and builds solutions, AI solutions critical for military and defense field, mostly focusing on satellite imagery, and then are able to detect patterns of life in imaginary. That's what I learned from the web, and I will be happy to bring in your perspective as someone who is already building AI appliance in these fields. Ms. Ieva Papantoniou, you are coming from DG DEFIS, all the long abbreviations, but I understand that under your supervision there is implementing the EU AI Act in defense context also. Sort of how do we bridge regulation and innovation and make Europe strategic autonomy while governing this dual-use AI technologies. And Mr. Kahn from SentinelOne, VPO on AI and machine learning. Again, another private sector company platform who already deploys AI tools in cybersecurity domain, and we will be happily bringing in your perspective. So with this skepticism in the audience, I wanted to give you a sort of a common first, set the scene question. Give us an example. Let's sort of what we are discussing of AI deployment in operations. Can you mention either one, maybe from your own products or experiences that is already working, or which you are aiming to work as such a product? And maybe I can start from the private sector and then maybe from your overseeing role.
Sounds good. Hey everyone, once again, my name is Kahn at SentinelOne. SentinelOne, we're a cybersecurity platform player. We've been using AI for the last 10 years, and AI has certainly evolved over that time, starting with machine learning, both supervised and unsupervised machine learning, and now towards generative and agentic AI. And that's where it really gets interesting. SentinelOne for the last year has been deploying generative AI into our customer base, including government customers. And that's primarily focused on this idea of being an AI assistant. So using AI to streamline security operations, such as threat hunting and threat investigation, by allowing security analysts to ask questions in natural language. Instead of writing long, complex queries, just ask questions in your native language and allowing AI to translate that, execute queries, and then suggest next best questions that analyst should ask. So really guiding analysts through threat hunting and threat investigations so that even junior analysts can perform these more complex actions. That's really where AI is today, primarily within the cybersecurity space. It's really guiding and assisting security analysts, augmenting humans. Where is it going next? And next is not that far away. We're actually shipping some really exciting new agentic AI capabilities this year. And these agentic AI capabilities leverage really the cutting edge of deep reasoning technologies. So actually doing full incident investigations on behalf of the analysts while they sleep. And the analyst wakes up in the morning and reviews the work. So still a human in the loop, still a human approving that work, but this new deep reasoning capabilities has the potential to shave off thousands of investigation hours per month from a large security operations center. And CISOs and security executives and managers are going to have the ability to figure out how they want to redeploy those human hours towards higher ROI activities while the machine does these activities on their behalf. So that's where we're going next. We're still a ways off of full autonomy, where a human is not in the loop at all. It depends on how optimistic you are about AI progress. Some folks think that's a couple years away. Some folks think we'll never get there. But that's the march that we're on.
Thank you. So I'm glad. So I feel this is more like still enrichment and advisory role to make a better decisions for a human, quicker, more precise. Do you feel the same about your work in Safran AI? That's where you would say currently we have AI in operational mode already?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Augmentation is really the right way to describe what we do. Of course, we've been using computers for decades, and we are already used to employing technical means that go way beyond the human capabilities, and that's what AI is doing today. So what we do is that we help our customers to manage a huge amount of data that is now available and that is beyond human capabilities. You cannot align the level of human resources to process all the images that are available now with commercial and military satellites, for instance. So people are just trying to find a way to exploit this tsunami of data, and that's where AI comes into place, essentially. And they want to do that, of course, at the speed of need, which is sometimes processing things within a minute. And you are talking about images that cover 40, 50, 100 square kilometers, and you're trying to find a needle in a haystack, and it's, of course, very time-consuming. So you will want to use AI to help you do your job faster, better, in a more reliable way. But we cannot consider that anything we do which is related to defense or aerospace, which are highly critical, without a human in the loop. And the reason for that is that the AI we are using, deep learning or even Gen AI, they are statistical by nature, right? That's how the technology works. So since these are statistical predictions, probabilistic predictions, there is no way to guarantee that the prediction is accurate or precise and is perfect. You just cannot. So people pretend that it's not the case, or it will not be the case, or you will have superhuman capabilities. I don't say that it would never happen, but I don't see that happening before years. So you have to acknowledge that anything you build with AI is subject to hallucinations or mistakes. So the job here to put AI in operations, with critical operations, is really to design a way to combine human and machine capabilities, which are statistical by nature, in the best possible way. So you need to make sure that your customers, the users, know exactly what they can expect from the technology and their shortcomings. And then you can start having a real discussion about how to best use that. And it works. I mean, this is actually used in operations. There's no doubt about that in different countries. And it works very well, but with a human in the loop. The human is designed in the product. We design the solution with the end users in the development team. And that way, you make sure that you have very good management of expectations, and then humans can decide to use those tools or not, knowing their limitations, and that's the way you keep control of what you do, because the human has authorized the use of AI, so they know what they are doing when they make a decision to use it. So AI is not operating independently in its own way, with its own will. There's a human deciding how to use those tools, which are, technical tools like others.
Thank you. Before I nudge you into, I think, which I feel in human perception, AI is something that works independently. But what I hear so far in the discussion, we have a human in the loop. I hear that constantly. But I want to hear maybe from your EU perspective, given the skepticism in the whole, how do you feel about EU actually using already AI in some operations? Or how would you describe the current level of embracing AI in operations in EU?
Hello, good morning from everybody. Actually, I'm happy to share this panel with the industry representatives because we need to work, as from a regulator point of view, we need to work together with industry and together with member states. And let me zoom out, actually. Artificial intelligence, of course, the EU has been the front runner because we've regulated with the AI Act, that we have put an ambitious proposal. We think it is a balanced one, risk-based, that it is now in force. And under the AI Act, actually, defense enjoys a larger scope of exemption because their final products used for defense purposes are not regulated under the AI Act. I think this is something that people, they don't necessarily keep in mind. And also, all research is not regulated by the AI Act. So, because of course research, we know are now dual research, or it is completely blurred between the civil and military research. So any research for AI, be it for civil or military use, will not be regulated. It's not regulated, actually, the AI Act. However, as a EU have recognized the AI as a strategic asset, we've seen that is currently being used by the governments, but also by businesses in all types of situations as an enabler, a strategic enabler. And we've seen also now today the war in Ukraine, how AI is used with the war of drones, the army of drones actually that both Russian in their attacks and Ukrainian actually forces are defending against it is used. We've seen the AI is used by member states in all types of military capabilities, not only control and command, but also situation awareness in all the domains actually. We've seen AI being used in hybrid threats, different types, but also in cyber attacks, in the foreign interference and manipulation of information. It is used. And so I think the white paper on defense that we have approved a couple of months, 2 months ago, actually in March, calling Defense Readiness 2030, the need to rearm Europe in view of the imminent threat in which Europe is actually today. We have called for massive investments and facilitate investments by member states and by private sector. At least we expect 800 billion in the next 4 years to rearm Europe by 2030. And then AI is really recognized as one of the critical capability gaps that we need to invest together with quantum and other emerging technology. But certainly AI is one of the key enabling technologies. And we are also rely very much on the strong industrial base, European industrial base, because AI in defense has a different kind of requirements as compared to AI in the non-defense domain. We need a trustworthy AI, that it is robust, more robust, and that we do not suffer all vulnerabilities. We need to be in control of the supply chains, for example, to work in trust with our suppliers. And we know that part of the war is for AI is at the supply chains. Are we having enough materials or components that we can source to meet the demand? So I would say I would be rather optimistic from a policy perspective that would try to have a bit more regulatory approach and enabling the environment. I will not also maybe mention later that we, of course, have been investing as Europe for the research for the AI. Certainly not enough, but this is something that it is very high on our radar because of the white paper announcements that we need to step up the Europe presence in the AI. And we are currently developing a technology roadmap for AI for defense, in which actually we hope also to have the right financial means to step up our funds for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Good to hear optimism, and I think optimism probably has to come with really proper financial investments, because that's how we get move forward. But I want to nudge you. I mean, I hear a lot, which is augmented AI. And yet we speak about autonomous operations. And I work myself partly in Ukraine, supporting Ukraine in different cyber and digital endeavors. And we do see a lot of autonomous AI applications already in the warfield. AI-powered electronic warfare. We see autonomous drone swarms, not only the drones that are augmented by AI capabilities, but that are capable to act autonomously and take the decisions. We have automated artillery system that makes AI-based decisions. We have AI target recognition and engagement, being able to recognize the target and make a decision how to operate the attacks. So adversaries are also not sleeping. They do use that automated decision making. And as much as you were all resistant and sort of go into automated operations for a good reason, because we have hallucinations, we have the mistakes. I think there was a brilliant discussion in Paris Peace Summit in the fall, where one of your commanders said, I can't embrace tools that I can't trust 100% as a military commander, and I can't make my people to embrace that. So there is a difficulty. Yet the war already demonstrates that that's moving on. So if I nudge you, where do you feel this automatization can go, when, and how we can put those safeguards still according to EU, democracy, value-based decision-making, respecting lives and ethical different angles. So I'll push you, where is that moment when you take out the human out of loop and feel confident deploying in autonomous?
I think maybe I'll give a quick example to start with. So there is a lot of autonomous operations already happening inside cybersecurity in particular. And that autonomy has tight guardrails on it. And it's mostly around deterministic processes. Just as like one example, in 2017, a Saudi petrochemical plant was attacked with malware called Triton malware. You might remember that name. And it automatically went into fail-safe mode. It determined that there was a rootkit on machines, and automatically all of the ICS systems went to fail-safe mode and shut down the plant, shut down the entire plant automatically. Now, is that AI? Well, it isn't agentic AI. It was a very deterministic process that shut down the entire plant. And like as AI is evolving towards more and more determinism, like right now there are hallucinations, there's some randomness in responses, but AI is getting better and better and more deterministic. And as we hit that threshold, we as an industry, we as a community will become more and more comfortable turning over more and more sensitive processes to AI.
Mm-hmm. Do you see, if I can follow quickly up, do you see a liability question? For example, let's stay within cyber domain. If because AI system takes down or stops some operational, system, that triggers, I don't know, financial consequences, some accesses, something. Do you see a liability as a topic? Who bears the liability if that's a false decision, or, even if it's not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it that much different than, if you're using something like a security automation tool today, like a SOAR tool, security orchestration automation response tool, and building out workflows to automate certain processes. You, the user, are determining which processes to apply that automation to. You're taking on that risk. And so it's really, all of us, and in particular, IT operators, need to decide for themselves about which processes do they feel comfortable automating with AI, whether that's really smart AI like generative AI or really simple AI like a deterministic workflow automation. So it's really about that level of comfort and the risk threshold each of us have around automating certain processes. But I'll leave it at this. Attackers are using AI, and the only way we as an industry will stay up to speed with those attackers is if we also use AI. Attackers are just going to be moving so fast, we're going to have to use it to keep pace with them.
Absolutely, but I think when you move also to end user, taking the decision on risk, that requires highly educated end users, and we have problems there. I actually remember the years ago, and even probably now, when you run antivirus program, and then you disable it because some services simply don't work with that antivirus program. You can't download some website, you can't access some bank. I mean, I wonder, this is going to be different level, but still end user and this risk understanding, and where do you sacrifice, the moment that maybe some services do get blocked and checked for threats? But I hear you. How do you feel in this geospatial and imagery field? I mean, facial recognition comes as a sort of simple user in my mind, that debate, right? Where we very strictly draw the red line saying we're not going to make decisions on recognition automated there. In your domain, do you see these red lines and guardrails much better, and you don't see this automated possible?
No, it's definitely possible, and I completely subscribe to what had just been said. I think it's psychological. It's a question of getting used to the machine and how it behaves. Because an ugly truth is that humans are not reliable, and in many things that we are used to, there is an assumption that humans are perfect. We see that clearly in a field where we are active, which is non-destructive testing on manufacturing lines. Today you have visual inspectors looking at a part that has been manufactured to detect defects, and that part may go in an aircraft engine. So you see how critical it is to detect defects, right? Everything is certified that way, with humans in the loop, because there is an assumption that the humans will see the problems. In fact, they don't. The reality, and we are humans, we can get tired. It's a very difficult job to do. So you let some things go through the filter, the human filter, and nobody really acknowledges that, but you can measure it and prove it. Now comes AI to do the same job. AI statistically will be typically better than humans, but will make mistakes that humans might not do. They have different ways of working, right? And so now is the decision about, are you using AI for autonomous, while you know that it's not perfect, but you also know that humans that you let be autonomous also make mistakes. So then what is our attitude towards man and machine shortcomings? What we see today, psychologically, and your comments about this commander who needs 100% certainty, well, their soldiers are not 100% reliable anyway. So the fact is that people are very unforgiving towards machines. We know that when we have pretty good products, but when you make a mistake that a human would not do, that's a proof that the whole thing doesn't work, while statistically it does. So that's where the debate is. And I think at the end of the day, it's a question of assessing whether the particular situation justifies using something that makes some level of mistakes. And obviously, I would not take a robotaxi personally, knowing how AI works today. I would not do that. But if I'm in a flooded zone with a broken leg, and that's the only thing that I can find, of course I will take it. You know what I mean? So it's not very clear cut. It depends on the circumstances. And that's where humans stay in the loop. A human will decide to use that stuff knowing that it has shortcomings. great question, comment about we might not know, you need very smart people to know. I think there will be new jobs being created in AI. We see that already in manufacturing lines. You need, in manufacturing, you have quality inspectors, quality directors. They have the authority to stop the manufacturing line if they detect a defect. Even if the CEO is not happy, if not the sales guys are not happy because they will not make the numbers, someone has the authority to block the line. I think in AI, you will need something like that, where someone will have the ability to say, hey, in that kind of circumstance, it's not okay. And maybe referring that to a committee or an ethics committee or whatever. You will need something like that. You need safeguards. But otherwise, that's how you should work with AI today. Autonomous operation is possible under particular circumstances.
I know you have to rush, and I'm happy I can give you a floor before you have to run, and then we can continue. And I think you lean to this safeguard mode. Actually, the example that comes to my mind is autonomous vehicles. They are there, but we are not using them, and that's this whole trust thing. And I mean, we as the drivers, we might be very bad drivers as humans ourselves, and AI clearly might be a better. But every mistake that AI-driven vehicle makes costs us like delay of introduction. So that's a challenge, but that also makes me think, like you say, in a military and defense domain, adversaries are already there. And that gives me a feeling that we are in a passenger seat. We are not driving the change and innovation. We are basically catching up when there is no absolutely other choice that everybody else uses AI. And I want to ask you this in the context of EU setting ambition. We want to lead. We have to Europe has to catch up in technology, and AI is this sort of next level opportunity. Let's be leaders. So how do you see that besides a good financial investments? What are these things, how we can encourage, given Europeans' need for safety, safeguards, guardrails, I liked your idea of third parties who could constantly test. We could create this, like AI could test AI, right? Is it reliable? But tell me whether you have some strategic ideas or maybe guidelines coming or some other incentives that could put EU in this leader's seat.
I think the EU lead in the AI, this couple of months ago in Paris, actually there was an AI summit to which hosted by France, and then President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, participated and made a real keynote announcing what the EU in terms of investment is now putting, because it is a priority. It is a fact that actually we're not leaders in AI, also in deep tech. So we've seen this AI global race by China and the US. And in terms of quantitative investments, actually, the figures are very telling. So R&D in the past in the EU was like 10 times lower than was is in the US. Of course, about China, we don't know because there are no publicly available data, not comparable, but they are very much advanced. So that's why we are, in terms of investment financing, we are actually created these hubs and AI gigafactories, trying to attract the skills, choose Europe. I think this is we need also the right skilled workforce to come and where to put all the brains and to have the infrastructure together. So we've announced 12 AI gigafactories that are in the making. There are other 5 that are coming. This is a major investment from the EU, but of course we need also private money. The public cannot be enough on its own. Your question about governance and ethicals, I think with the adoption of the AI Act, we had a lot of debates with our member states, the Council, but also with the Parliament, which are the authorities, the co-legislator in the Union. And we have found that this, as it was mentioned by industry, that there is to be some kind of meaningful human control. Today, this is, for example, when the European Defence Fund is funding AI projects, because it's also taxpayers' money, European taxpayers' money. We have the safeguard that has to be a meaningful human control ultimately on the projects that we are funding. Of course, what it means meaningful or not, the lines are not easy and are blurred and more. And I repeat also, the war in Ukraine with the battlefield, actually, this has been tested more and more. the army of drones and the counter drones that are used, and they're based also on AI a lot. So it is we're learning actually out of this. We don't have the magic response, but we see the technology trends that automation is there. We need to put some kind of safeguards, checks and balances as we have for any other types of decision. And I will agree with my interlocutors here that actually AI is also a tool that can help us actually contribute to a better decision making ultimately. Thank you.
Do you think we will be able to synchronize? I mean, part of that is also we are different nations. We will differently apply or interpret some of those regulations. We will be able. Will you try to synchronize that across the EU, or you will give pretty much freedom?
Well, the EU cannot give answer to everything. We're just being united, and it's our force, and then trying to harmonize at least a minimum level. It always helps to have a common understanding. But I think more cooperation and trust between the authorities, the member states, the cyber commander before mentioned this, that it is difficult first to share the information, to find the right interlocutors. It's something that the EU really tries to join the dots of all the nations, because there are some competencies that the union does not have, and it is for the member states to decide. And also when I talk about defense and AI defense, I think we're much more sensitive on this. So we cannot have in one kind of straitjacket for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you rush, but Sebastian said we have, that's okay, I think we had a slight delay. We have some 10-15 minutes. If there is a question in audience, we would be happy to take them. Please, you will raise a hand. I actually have a question. We have a European and American company at the stage. I want to ask your European company, do you feel Europe has advantage in AI, and what would be advantages for business or industry in AI in Europe from your perspective or your experience? How we can build this EU and industry in AI?
Yeah. First, I think in terms of human capital skills, we are at the state of the art. So there is no problem whatsoever, in my opinion. The level of engineers, of mathematicians is what we need. The other thing is that I think for the kind of application that I'm dealing with, having this oversight of the European regulation is good for business, because a lot of customers are concerned about how to use AI. You know, most people have a high level of ethics. We should never forget that. You have bad guys, of course, but most people care. And dealing with a European company which operates under some certain principles is good, in my opinion. So to have a brand recognition, a European brand, is probably an asset, I would say. Now, the fact that the European Union is very fragmented economically is a problem. You don't have the same scale. It's very hard to go from one country to the other. That's really a problem. And access to data is what is the main problem today, frankly speaking. You know, it's not really so much the regulation as we know it, the AI Act whatsoever, is really accessing the data, because the better the data, the better the AI, in fact. It's not really so much about the algorithm, and you don't need a genius to do that. You need very good data. So how to share data and how not to be paranoid with how data is used is the main problem that I see. And I don't see any real constraints in the US, apparently. I don't think it's so good, but they have an advantage probably that we might not have. And that's where the problem for me is today.
I'm glad you mentioned regulation, because that's where Europe faces the most criticism, right? Europe over-regulates and regulates and doesn't do. But I think regulation has a good intention and actually reflects societal concerns and needs. The difficulty is how we implement that and how fragmented we are in implementation, and that we turn that not into meaningful results. That here is a concern, this is how we address it technically, but we turn it into this crazy compliance machinery, then everybody is a paper on paper on paper, and it's all becomes about compliance rather than meaningful address of concern. Sorry, you had a question, please.
Yes, thank you. Stéphane Gagnon from University of Quebec in Canada.
You
well,
always had a question, right?
yes,
Yesterday you apologized.
I'm so sorry.
Good job, thanks.
I have one part of the brain working too fast and the other part slowly, trying to catch up. So I'm trying to fill up the other part. Basically, agentic AI is a beautiful nickname for AI. It is not new, of course. Multi-agent systems are very old. 15, 20 years ago, we still had rule-based systems. Now, rules are public domain and they have a public good problem. The MITR, CVE, MITR, attack, and every other things may soon enough be lagging in quality, in update, in, I would say, recency. Now, this public good problem is going to affect AI. What is the private sector going to do for that? Now, we lost AV, I'm sorry. We would have asked her first. What about you guys from the private sector? Is there something you expect to be done by the public sector? And what is the private sector going to do to push in the right direction for this public good problem?
So in terms of public good specifically related to AI vulnerabilities, so I would say in general, most CVEs are identified by the private sector. Also, certainly researchers and universities as well. But the real, I think the most important thing there in terms of AI vulnerability research is governments need to spur innovation, because agentic AI, yes, the concept of agentic AI has been around for a while. The attack surface is completely different now. These new agent frameworks and the LLMs, which are the brains of these new AI agents, it's a completely different world. It reminds me of the beginning of cloud security. Think about 2015 when cloud computing, public cloud computing, was just taking off. And everyone was leaving their S3 buckets wide open. This is the phase we're entering right now with AI and agentic AI. It's all new technology, brand new attack surface, and there's very little specific agentic AI security companies out there. I track it very closely. I talk to every startup. There's a great one in Zurich, by the way, called Invariant Labs, which has been publishing great research about AI vulnerabilities, but there's not enough companies yet focused specifically on this new attack surface. So governments need to spur innovation in this space. We need a lot more companies and startups focused on identifying vulnerabilities in agentic AI and MCP servers. This is another buzzword you'll hear a lot about, model context protocols. This is how AI agents interact with tools, including like GitHub repos, databases, et cetera. This is also a brand new attack surface that is relatively unprotected, and this is going to be where attacks focus. In terms of EU regulation, there's a lot of focus on the model providers, the large language model providers, and making sure that those folks are doing things in a secure way. I actually have no concern about the large language model providers. In a similar way, I don't have any concern about AWS patching their vulnerabilities faster than any other company out there. OpenAI is going to patch their vulnerabilities faster than any regulation could dictate. Where the problems will happen is at the application layer. The companies that are building agentic AI applications that leverage MCP servers, this is where the attacks are going to happen. And we need startups and innovation to protect that layer. Regulation isn't going to help at that layer.
Anything to add?
No, I tend to agree. I just want to insist on the fact that when you are doing real AI in real critical operations, there is a notion between the buzzword, this concept, agentic AI, and what customers really use or are ready to use. When we talk about what we do, usually people say, oh, that's it. They are disappointed. Because it's not sexy. It's not superhuman. It's just what happens behind the hype curve. We live behind the hype curve. A lot of people are living on the hype curve. It's another world entirely, I can tell you. So I wish I would have to deal with that, but we are so far from it, given what it takes to create adoptions and for customers to get used to using those technologies, which are very disruptive, very unusual. It will take quite a lot of time in my world before we have to deal with these issues. They are in our mind, but that's really not a priority for now.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Any other hands? We have a few minutes to wrap up, and I think I'm taking away that there is a big space for R&D needs. I think you articulated that, you as an industry mentioned, so whoever can take back message to governments and budgets and academia probably, and boost this R&D capabilities in Europe. And I think those who are interested, clearly there are business cases out there, none addressed in cybersecurity, build startups. But I will ask question, and there is a 10, your predictions in 5-10 years. I actually do a simpler job for you guys. We're probably gonna all meet in a cyber summit here in Paris next year.
I hope so.
So what do you think in a year we will be discussing in this context? Where will be, because I think with AI, there's no point to discuss 5-10 years. It's like, okay, what's next year?
So the agentic AI is probably the buzziest technology trend that I've ever experienced. And, but there's actually few AI agents in production. It's still very much, beta development stage. But over the next year, I believe wholeheartedly that we'll see many AI agents in production environments. And with that, you will see a wave of attacks and exploits and vulnerabilities targeting these applications. So I think in a year from now, we'll be moving from theoretical attacks against AI systems and be discussing real-world examples.
Okay, and agents will be a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. My hope is that in 5 years from now, we stop talking about AI like something magical, fancy, scary, and just understand what it really is, and that it's becoming part of the technology we are using, knowing exactly when to use them. I think that's going to happen because, again, behind the hype curve where we live in the world of production AI. It's different, but there's a lot of things that you learn to design a product, to specify what you are trying to do, to make sure that you have an operational benefit. There's a lot of know-how to be built that a lot of people ignore, and that's why so many AI projects fail. I think in a few years, people will accumulate experience about what it takes to really use AI effectively. So it's likely that there will be new discoveries, new concepts like agents today that people will talk a lot about, but a lot of what is a bit magical and fancy and scary will become, common technology that everybody is going to use, and then we'll have secured everything, and we'll go to the next phase. But I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of things that we could do, but we don't do so well today. We just get used to it and make a better use of the technology that is already existing.
But if I zoom to your company, what is your expectation of next year when we will meet here in Summit? Where will you be with AI?
We'll probably be in a multimodal world, combining more LLMs, vision language models, so that the interaction with AI is more intuitive, it's more powerful, and you can combine different pools of data that don't make sense for a human, but the AI will detect correlations and complementarities and things like that. So we definitely keep augmenting human capabilities.
Okay, thank you. I think, Sebastian, you have some ideas for next year's discussions, so we can check how well we do, and the audience has some homework on R&D and AI security, new startups. So thank you very much, panelists, and thanks.